Podcast. I'm your host, Joel, my co-host, Ben. It was the most exciting divisional round of playoffs that I think I've ever seen. Every game was intense. Every game came down to the last wire. And the game this week stirred, or I would say re-stirred, the controversy of the overtime rule in the NFL as compared to college. What do you think about the NFL's sudden death rule compared to the college plays so you can't score as much as the other team? Or do you think that there should just be an amending of the overtime rule, but not the same as as college?
I think there needs to be an amending of. I don't like even college's rule. I think it's pretty simple.
College's new rule on overtime, where they go for two.
The new rule is dumb, and the old rule is flawed too, in my opinion. Right? It's because the new rule, just trading 2-point conversions. We saw that in that Penn State. What game was that? Penn State and
Illinois.
That was the dumbest football game I may have ever witnessed. Watching those two teams smack each other and into a brick wall over and over again. That was just stupid. Okay. Mm-hmm. In the end, to me, it just needs to be a reduced quarter. So, okay, a quarter's 15 minutes long. Just make it a 7 or an 8-minute quarter. You're more than likely going to get both teams able to get the ball at least once, possibly twice, right? And you're going to find out, in my opinion, which team is better at that point, okay? So kick it off like normal, right? And you're going to play a reduced quarter at that point. And if you're tied at that point in the NFL, in the regular season, I mean, if you're tied at the end of overtime now, it's a tie anyway, so you can leave it that way and just leave it the same, have it the same thing in college, right? In regular season, it's a tie if you can't decide it at that point. Now, I know, there'll probably be a few ties, but it's rarely going to happen. There's not going to be ties at the end of these things. If you give a team 8 minutes, one of those teams is going to at least probably get a field goal, more than likely. So reduce the quarter. You don't need to make it a full 15-minute extra session, but make it legitimate football. Kick off, do a coin toss, kick off. It actually adds a strategy back into it again too. Where it's like, okay, now it's like, oh, the controversy was like Josh Allen knew they lost the game as soon as they lost that coin toss, right? It's like a game like that should never have to end just on the luck of the coin toss. And that, it sucks that that's the way it had to end. And yeah, like you can point to, okay, well, the team who had to, if the Bills were actually a really good team, they would have stopped them with their defense, but like that's not how that works. So I like the idea of just an amended quarter, make it shorter, because I know they worry about guys getting worn out, especially the college game, just guys getting hurt because they're so worn out and whatever. So amend the quarter, cut it down. There's so many breaks. These guys aren't gonna get that worn out. There's so many TV breaks in these games now. These guys aren't worn out. They're going to be fine. I would just amend the quarter, shorten it, and then play it out like a real football game. So I think that's the best way to do it. And then if a team goes on a, 14-play, 8-minute drives it right down their throat and then, scores a touchdown at the end or kicks a game-winning field goal with no time left, well, at that point, they probably deserve to win because they just imposed their will on the other team, right? Versus, and then if they go right down and score right away, right, then the other team gets a chance to do the same thing. So I think it gives both teams a fair opportunity at that point, and it doesn't just leave it up to a coin toss. And that's kind of where we're at with the NFL right now, where, I mean, they amended it a little bit to where you couldn't just play for the field goal and win, which was a step in the right direction, but just play a regular quarter, not first person to score, none of that. Play a regular quarter of football. I don't know why that. I mean, I'm sure there's reasons why that hasn't been a thing, but I just don't know why that can't be the answer.
That's a really good idea. I don't think I've even heard of that one before, where they have like a 7-8 minute quarter.
Probably an 8-minute quarter.
Probably, yeah, 8, and 8's not bad. I mean, I know that the Lions in one game this year had one drive where they, I think, legit took off 8 minutes. I think it was that.
It happens. It certainly happens. But at that point, they deserve to win if you do that and you go down and score. Like you dominated that quarter, that half quarter. You dominated it if you're able to do that. So good. I mean,
essentially, yeah, that's 16 plays probably.
Yeah.
So, well, overtime context, I was looking up some numbers on that. Based on the current overtime rules that were implemented in the 2010 playoffs and the 2012 regular season, under those current overtime rules, there have been 163 overtime games, and that's including playoffs. And the teams that won the overtime coin toss have a record of 86 and 67 and 10 in those games, which is they've won just under 53% of the game. So it's actually pretty close. I mean, if you go to the 53-47 ratio on who wins, I mean, people play the coin toss, but that's where defense does come into play. And neither of those teams had defense in this controversial game between the Chiefs and the Bills. That's why, the same thing would have applied if the Bills won that coin toss. Bills probably are moving on.
Right. Right. And that's the frustrating part. That's why I just think, everybody's always like, man, a game like that should never come down to just the coin toss. And, yeah, I can agree with that. And I also see the side of, well, you do need a defense in football, right? You do need to be able to stop them, or at least hold them to 3. But I don't know. I just think the way to make it fair, the way to make it to where there's no issues is to play it like a legitimate game. Just if you want to make it shorter because it's overtime and it probably should be shorter, you can't really probably play a full extra session, then yeah, make it shorter and just cut it in half or almost in half at 8 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and the same overtime rules, obviously since 2010 playoffs, 2012 regular season, there have been 11 overtime playoff games. The teams that won the overtime coin toss have a record of 10-1, which is almost 91%. So the only team to lose was the Saints in the 2018 NFC Championship game versus the Rams, which was also Bush League, if you remember the Nickel Roby-Coleman pass interference.
Right.
7 of those 10 teams scored the sudden death touchdown on the opening drive. So these are now the elite of the elite. So I think that there should be an amending, but I don't necessarily think there should be for other than I agree with you for the 8-minute for the regular season. And I don't know if that's based on my thoughts on the wear and tear of some of these guys and the NFL specifically. They're playing with 46 guys because remember they have a 53-man roster, but they have to put at least 5 or 6 inactive.
Yep.
To get down to like 46 on game time. So they're already on a tight squad. These guys are burned out, and they're just it's the abuse. Whereas college, I actually don't. I think the 2-point conversion one is actually I actually like the previous one better, where the third overtime you scored a touchdown, you had to go for 2 on that.
I like that better.
But college, you're traveling up to 100 players every week, so you also have the capacity to play guys that haven't sweat yet. So, I mean, I know you want to play your starters, but if you're worried about the wear and tear, you have players at your disposal.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. I don't know. I don't think there should be a concern for wear and tear, especially in college. Yeah. In the NFL, I mean, rosters are tighter, so you got to worry about that a little bit. But there's not, I mean, overtime, it's not like, it's definitely common, but it's not like it's not like every week. You know what I mean? Like, how many overtime games did the Lions play this year?
Well, they had a tie with the Steelers, and I think they had one other one. They won?
Yeah. So 2 out of 17 games, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's a team that, kept everything, played a lot of close games, really, if we're thinking about it. That's a team that played a ton of close games and still only went to 2 overtime games. So it's not like, I just don't think it's incredibly prevalent to a point where you'd have to worry about it. Yeah, and maybe if you're worried about it in the regular season where, yeah, every game matters, but like, you really probably got to worry about the fairness of it more in the playoffs. Then yeah, maybe you go with the model they have right now in the regular season. In the playoffs, you play an 8-minute quarter or something like that. Maybe that's the way you do it. Because like you said, like when it's the best teams, it seems like those best teams are going to score that opening drive, to win the sudden death overtime. So,
and the Ringer actually came out with an article on 8 different ways to kind of fix overtime, but I'm kind of glancing through some of these, and a lot of them are kind of pertaining to just go back to sudden death is one of them. And inspired by college football, each team gets one possession starting from the 25. The score is still tied after both. The process repeats. Now, for the NFL, I actually think that go better. I actually think the original college overtime rules would be better for NFL because it's a short field. You don't have to. You're obviously going to do less offensive plays, and you're relying probably more on the kicker. But at some point, I think the rule would have to be you have to go for it. So,
why did you?
Yeah,
I don't mind that one actually. The sudden death after the first possession, regardless of what happens at first possession. Are they talking first possession? So each team gets a chance to possess the ball no matter what, right? Mm-hmm. So even if both teams score a touchdown, then it's sudden death. I actually like that.
I like their 11th one, and that is extra innings baseball, but extra possessions football. The regular NFL overtime period with the spirit of college football is equal possessions, but without removing special teams from the equation. Imagine a baseball game going into extra innings. They just keep playing, but with possessions instead of half innings. The coin toss would decide the kickoff, and the teams would play a non-sudden death overtime period. The team that gets the ball first would either score on its possession or have to punt, just like in regulation. The team that gets the ball second would have to match or exceed the score posted by the first team on its drive. If the game is still tied after two possessions, the teams would keep going. For example, if the first team punts, the opponent would be able to win with just a field goal. So the pros of that would be they would keep the spirit of equal possessions from the college overtime system and promote maximum fairness, but also preserve special teams, field position, and everything else that makes football flow and football coaches glow. And it would also address the coin toss. The power of the coin toss in the NFL overtime goes to the team that gets the ball first because of the opportunity to score first, but also because of the field position earned by getting the kickoff and punting if necessary. So by contrast, the equal possession system favors the team that goes second because it has the information advantage. This system could mitigate both issues by incorporating advantages from both.
So you might have teams taking one or the other depending on how they feel about their team.
Mm-hmm. The one con they listed was instead of mitigating the power of the coin toss, the proposal could exacerbate it. Also, this could give us our first 5-hour football game, but it's the only solution that attempts to emphasize equal possessions, de-emphasize the coin flip, and keep the game both authentic and fun. Most importantly, it's the best option to cut down on the whining.
I mean, I would have watched the Raiders-Bills game for 5 more hours, so I don't think that would be a problem. I mean, yeah, I know coaches will say, but in the playoffs, I don't think any coach is going to have a problem with something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, and I think that's plenty. I think the NFL, I don't think it needs to be a set thing with how they handle overtime in the playoffs and how they handle it because someone has to advance in the playoffs anyway. So amend it while you can because there cannot be a tie in the playoffs.
Right. So just make it better and make it more
different. It doesn't have to be the same as the regular season either. The regular season,
right? Well, that's what I was saying. Hey, if you go to an 8-minute quarter or something like that, you
I love that for the regular
season. Now during the regular season, if you're worried about wear and tear and beating guys up and stuff like that, but there can't be a tie in the postseason. So,
I love your suggestion for the regular season NFL for sure. And then I think obviously like I said, I don't think it has to be the exact same regular season playoffs. So amend the playoff situation and maybe cut the overtime quarter in half. So
yeah, I like that.
I like that a lot. Let's submit it to let's see if I can get Roger Goodell's number and get that put in place, implement that.
Get him on next week.
Let's do that face to face.